Hello, M&A scientists. Welcome to the M&A Science Podcast. This podcast is part of a mission to rethink how M&A is done. The old school settle-led approach, it's dead. Buyer-led M&A is all about strategy, alignment, and efficiency, putting value creation at the center of every deal. And let's be real, it's not just about closing the deal, it's about making it successful. We uncover what truly works in M&A by learning directly from the best. I'm your host, Kisan Patel, founder and CEO of DealRoom and chief scientist at M&A Science. Today, I'm joined by Dan Pollock, vice president of corporate development and M&A at SAM Companies. With years of experience in M&A, Dan specializes in strategic acquisitions, relationship building, integrating family-owned businesses into larger corporate framework. His expertise lies in creating a win-win approach for sellers and driving SAM Companies' growth through carefully aligned acquisitions. SAM Companies provides geospatial services for large-scale projects such as transmission lines, highways, bridges, and pipelines. Backed by Peak Rock Capital, SAM Companies integrates M&A into its growth strategy with a focus on preserving values and relationships. Today, we're going to discuss aligning acquisitions with long-term strategy, maintaining trust with sellers, and ensuring smooth integrations. We're going to learn how Dan balances proactive relationship building with disciplined deal execution for scalable growth. Dan, how you doing today?
I'm very good, Kisan. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to our office suite to do this live in person in Manhattan.
Yeah, of course. Invite me in when it's raining. I appreciate it.
That's part of the fun here in New York, you know?
It's been a while since I've been back here. I spent about 5-6 years of my early career here, so it's always nice to come back into the city.
I appreciate we were able to do this live. I know I had to chase you down for like over a year to finally get you to do this. So I'm glad the team. So shout out to my team for pestering you enough to get you finally to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that they, it's all about deal sourcing, right? At the end of the day, staying active and persistent. So, no, this has been a lot of fun. I recently relocated up this way in the Northeast, so made it so much easier to get in here. So I appreciate it.
First lesson, M&A lesson is persistence conquers all.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's start with that.
I agree.
Shout out to VRC, Valuation Research Corporation, for providing our space to do this interview.
Yeah, great location.
Can we kick things off a little bit about your background?
Yeah, of course. Thanks. So I started my career in public accounting. I worked for a regional firm first for a couple of years up in upstate New York, and then found an opportunity with Deloitte down here in New York City. So I started on their audit practice. And the first touch in M&A was really the main audit client that I had, which was an investment bank. So they're obviously doing a lot of M&A advisory work, and they're actually doing some deals themselves. So got to be involved in, auditing, looking at that information, and those seemed pretty exciting. So I had an opportunity to pivot from Deloitte's audit team to their advisory team and transaction services group, so doing quality of earnings analysis and other accounting and financial diligence. So that's really I started to get my hands dirty when it came to real deal work, and then wanted to get more on the buy side. Saw some exciting things happening, so decided to go back to business school, get my MBA at the University of Texas, and that's where I did the networking. And got connected with SAM, which at the time was owned by another private equity group in Austin, and they were looking to build the M&A muscle at the company and really supplement their organic growth strategy. So it's I've been there since 2018, and I think I've done over about 25, 30 deals then.
So you got in, and it was brought right in to start building out M&A.
Yeah, they had done one deal. It was a nice deal. The company headquartered and founded in Austin, Texas. A lot of the operation was Texas and a handful of offices across the country. But the first deal they did got them on the East Coast, got them offices from Philly down to Atlanta. And then we were able to really, grow that organically, and then do some add-on acquisitions to fill in some holes. So now the business is At the time, it was probably like 500 employees. Now it's 1,600 employees with 45 plus offices across the country and very, very diverse now across the Texas and kind of east of the Mississippi.
Built the M&A function from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah. So
started from the bottom. Now you're here.
Started from the bottom. Now I'm here. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it was very much a learning experience for myself. I got to partner. I work directly and still do work directly for our CEO and got to partner with him. He's still heavily involved with the M&A. He lets me run with it, but he sees it as obviously a key piece of our value creation. So, but yeah, we really the private equity team wanted to have someone at their portfolio company to really focus on this and build the muscle within the organization and make M&A a core competency as part of the growth strategy. So that was the task. And, the first couple of years I got there, we did 2-3 deals a year, really building out the playbook and the process and the way we did this and who was going to be involved and pulling folks from different functional teams in, and just continue to massage and evolve the playbook really at the end of the day. To now where, we've got defined execution playbooks, integration playbooks, defined teams. We're using DealRoom. I'm sure that's the main reason why I'm here, but we're using DealRoom obviously to streamline all of that. So it's been a lot of fun. You see how it's evolved. You see how you learn things along the way. And, we're still not perfect, but we've gotten much better at this. And so
I got to put a disclaimer now that DealRoom customer, but we can't help it nowadays. Like all the best acquirers are using DealRoom, so I can't help it. And we're not going to make this a big commercial about DealRoom. It just comes up here and there.
Selfless plug.
Last year you guys did 7 deals.
Yeah,
and it's you. How big is your corp dev team?
Yeah, it's myself and shout out to my senior associate who does a lot of the work for makes me look good, makes our team look good. He's working hard, but. It's definitely not just the two of us, right? We very much appreciate that we've got a great group of people and a great company of talented folks that are they want to be successful. So, as I mentioned before, M&A has become part of the strategy and the growth story at SAM. So, our regional business unit area leaders they know that hey we can grow the business through acquisition as well. So partner with Dan. We sit down, like, what's your business strategy here at this kind of like more regional area, local level? How can we be helpful for you guys? And obviously we're a national business, but it's a pretty small industry. Everyone knows everyone and they know who's doing good work in their area or, the good people. It's a people business, right? So like people want to work with good people and hey, I used to work with this guy at company X. Now he's over at company Y, or he started his own thing 5-6 years ago. Let's go see if he's interested in selling the business, right? And bringing them in. So, definitely a team effort. We are very fortunate to have the resources we have to grow our pipeline and to get deals done.
Well, I like this. Sort of big part of it is the relationship with. What do you call it? Business unit leaders, general managers? Yeah,
let's just call it business unit leaders for simplicity.
So you build a relationship with them, you understand their strategy, and then they might even have ideas about companies, and then you start shaping your own pipeline based off of this. Yeah,
and maybe taking it a step further, the corporate business strategy is kind of revised not necessarily revised, but refreshed every year, right? With kind of like an annual plan and budget. And, these are the things that we want to focus on to help drive us to our financial, metrics that we want to hit. And, M&A is part of that. It's a tool to get there, right? It's not its own strategy out on an island. It's got to be tied. Where you focus your M&A efforts needs to be tied to your strategy, right? So, we're a tool in the toolbox to drive growth. We're organic first, if we can be, and then M&A is there to supplement it, and trying to have a really good balance between the organic and inorganic growth.
That's well put, by the way.
Yeah,
it's a tool to execute against your strategy.
Yeah, and so where I was going with this was those are the broader corporate strategy, but the way we like to think about our business is, a slogan that we use, national reach, but local relationships, right? So still very much service-based, boots on the ground, local relationships matter. So not the business strategy at the corporate level may not look exactly the same at every kind of office or business unit or what you want to call it. So it's like, let's go focus, have a focused strategy session with these individuals, these leaders, and say, okay, here's the broader corporate strategy. We want you to be diversified. We want you to be working with good clients, generating high margins, and you're able to grow, right? So it's like, let's go execute that. And can M&A be a part of it? And should M&A be a part of it?
Did you ever have a challenge getting like the M&A culture almost of folks that want to do or motivated to do M&A versus it becomes like a very much of like a push effort? Did you sort of feel that?
Yeah, I think starting out, it was probably like that because listen, it's a lot of work, right? They're going to be involved in diligence. They're definitely going to be involved in integration, and whether they like it or not, they're probably going to be held accountable for the success or failure of the deal. Or are we meeting our goals? Are we extracting the value, right? So it does put some additional pressure, I guess I would say, on these business unit leaders. But also, listen, if you're not growing, you're dying. And if you want to expand your career at a company like SAM, who's going to replace you? You need someone to take your spot now. So the only way to do that is you got to grow, right? It creates opportunities, creates development opportunities for our staff. So I think it's been, we've done a good job of articulating why growth is important. And now it's like, these guys are incentivized to grow their business. So, hey, and another way we dangle like a referral bonus and, hey, if you bring a deal to the table and we get it done, we'll pay you we'll give you a spot bonus for that. Right. So
interesting. Yeah.
It's nothing like massive, but it gets people thinking anyway. Right.
Right. So that's a good way to start lead gen. This episode is sponsored by DealRoom, the M&A platform purpose-built for buyer-led M&A. If you're in corporate development, you know how chaotic things can get. Juggling Excel trackers, email threads, shared drives, and 4 different tools just to get basic updates. DealRoom puts you back in control. It's an end-to-end platform designed specifically for buyers. You get one place to manage pipeline, diligence, and integration with built-in project management, real-time commenting, and automatic stakeholder notifications. You can templatize your rooms, run bulk permission updates across deals, and even use AI-powered contract analysis. With DealRoom, you're not just chasing people or reconciling data across tools, you're actually running a repeatable, scalable M&A process the way a buyer should on your terms. Click the link in the description to learn more. Let's get back to the episode. Was there anything in terms of like readiness for the company to do an acquisition you had to do, especially in these early deals that you were doing? Because I'm always curious about that. Like, even if I think about our own business and we're like really early, but it's like we want to do a first acquisition and you're excited to go do the deal. And then I know it's going to happen. It's going to be like, oh shit, there's all this stuff that is going to happen and break and stuff like that. And I'm like, can you get ahead of that? Yeah. And I don't want the cop out of like, go hire fucking consulting firms up the ass. And
what I would say is definitely required more resources, more skill set than we had at the time. I honestly think, again, not to plug DealRoom again, but it helped getting everyone involved in this and getting more of a cadence. You've got a deal that's, very close to LOI or post LOI, and now we're talking about like, real diligence and integration planning. You start getting a couple of those and to get the ball rolling, it just becomes second nature in a way. It's like, okay, here's the team. LOI's out. Okay, this is the next thing. Get everyone together, get them into the DealRoom, see the information, start asking questions, start building out the integration plan and the task list. And so I think it's just reps. At the end of the day, like you're not going to have all the answers up front. We did leverage our private equity partners at the time when we were doing our first couple of deals to provide guidance here, right? So my background is more in like financial diligence. So leverage that skill set and have been through deals before and knew the process, which obviously was very helpful. So
how, like if you look back and how your process evolved, because after 25, 30 deals, how would that compare from those early deals to how you do deals now?
Yeah, I think we've gotten just so much stronger at every aspect of the deal life cycle, from sourcing through closing and integration. For the longest time, it was just me as a one man show from a corp dev perspective. So bringing someone else on to really help drive some additional efficiencies and best practices was really helpful. But we've had a lot of the same team members too across the team, from more of like a back office perspective: finance, accounting, HR, marketing, legal, safety is important, regulatory, all that stuff. So these folks just get better every time we do a deal, right? They know what to be looking for. They know what's important. So, but I think probably where we've gotten this, where we've seen the greatest improvement in the process is the sourcing, relationship building with the target firms that we're going after, right? We've just, you do that long enough, you really start to hone the way you do that, and not necessarily calling it a sales pitch, but yeah, you really learn how to tell the story the right way.
I want to take that one apart.
Sure.
But before that, just to get more context about your company and the deals you do, can you just share one example of an acquisition, just to get a sense of like how it tied to strategy, and just to it's like hearing stories. I don't know.
Sure. So to maybe just share a little bit more about SAM. We are, as you mentioned, in the intro, we're a 1,600 person professional geospatial services firm. We do also some inspection services, but our main, where we've been very strong in our core competency is collecting spatial data that is then used for design purposes or construction purposes on these major infrastructure.
Were you talking about the drones that fly around?
We do some drone work, but we also have fixed wing aircraft with $1 million LiDAR sensors that is collecting very dense 3D type data and using that in a design perspective or construction phase. But then we're also doing a lot of this inspection work along the, it's called a transmission line, right? We're seeing all these forest fires and things or wildfires out in California. A lot of them are being driven by the power lines and stuff. So we're out inspecting these lines, trying to identify if something's failing or something's going to fail using these images and then predictive analytics and AI. So it's really fun company to be a part of, because we're doing some interesting things. At the end of the day, I think what we're doing is keeping people safer, right? Specifically when it comes to inspecting underground utilities, and we're identifying where gas pipelines are before you dig and things like that, right? So it's a really fun organization to be a part of and be a part of some of these major complex infrastructure projects. So with that, one of the key markets, subsectors that we work in is in the electric utility, electric power generation area, and we want to continue to grow in that. We see a continued growth in that part of the industry for many years to come. And one of the acquisitions we did probably about 4 or 5 years ago, they had made great reputation in the industry for being the go-to when it comes to anything geospatial services around renewable projects. So big wind farms, solar, and then transmission lines going up to connect generation to the grid. These green energy generation to the grid, right? So they were a smaller firm based out of Texas, but had national clients, but didn't have the national reach. So they joined forces with SAM, who also was doing a good amount of this work. And immediately, because of our national reach, we were able to go service 4 or 5 massive projects up in Illinois or in the Midwest that this other firm never would have been able to get at because they didn't have the resources of the national reach. So again, going back to that national scale, local relationship, that strategy came through. And I mean, we doubled that business in like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but then it's just cross-selling their service in this different market.
Well, it was more about just adding additional resources and capability to what he did to his national client base.
How'd you think about synergies on that deal? Not to like peek under the skirt here.
Yeah.
But, in terms of like, when you look at it, it's like, okay, let's say, X dollars are paying, but how do we look at synergies on cost synergies from buying a business like that versus revenue synergies? Because you said you doubled it.
Right.
How do you think that through? And, looking 2 years after, how accurate were you?
Yeah. That one actually, a lot of the deals that we do are a little bit smaller and they're hard to really quantify some of these synergies. The cost stuff you can kind of play out, tease out pretty easily. But on the revenue side, it's a lot of, hope for stuff and you think it's going to happen. And ultimately we typically see some pretty strong execution on that. But for this one, because we at SAM were going after a lot of these same projects that this company was winning, we knew immediately bringing these in what it was going to, like we knew the amount of the contract award, like what the revenue generation was going to be. So we could really get a good, clear picture of what revenue could be in the next 1, 2, 3 years based on, and these were multi-year projects, right? So I don't remember the dollar amounts exactly, but we had some specific things that we could put in there from a revenue synergy perspective to feel pretty good about, which is typically pretty hard to do from my perspective.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I talked to some companies, they don't add revenue synergies at all because it's just not something you can count on.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're a little conservative on it as well. You got to have some level of certainty.
Yeah.
But then cost synergies tend to be more predictable.
Yeah.
So you'll back to those.
Yeah. And then, I mean, one of the things too, and I don't know how much of a rabbit hole we want to go down into like earnouts and all that stuff at this point, but that can kind of play into that, right? It's as a seller, hey Sam, like I feel really good about we can go get all this additional work. It's like, okay, well, I guess put your money where your mouth is and let's put some type of like earnout incentive. So we're both sharing in that risk a little bit, right? If you have that much conviction in it, then let's both share in this. We'll both share in the win and we'll both share in the loss.
We're gonna come break that down, but let's start with the beginning. I want to learn this stuff. I want to learn how you court your targets.
Yeah.
First of all, like, how do you get them on the phone? Is it easy for you guys? Do you have the business unit leader just already knows them through conferences and stuff, or are you reaching out cold? Like, how does it start?
All the above, and much higher probability of a conversation or that intro call if there is some type of personal relationship with someone at the firm, right? I mean, it's just, again, if you knew somebody, right, and like you felt good about them, and you'd probably be willing to have a conversation with someone at their company. So that's definitely by and far and away like our number one resource and where we like to go to first. After that, just like with any probably corporate development individual you talk with on this podcast, a lot of proprietary cold outreach work. And we've done it again, being in the business now for 8 years or so, or 7 years. You kind of learn who it is. You learn who's doing the good work and who it is that would fit the strategy. So you kind of know who they are across different geographies, and just making sure that whether they never respond to you, following up and trying to get a response out of them, or if they have responded to you, telling you, hey, I appreciate the outreach, just not the right time. You just hit them up in 6 months or in a year and just continue to see when the timing, because it is all about timing at the end of the day, right?
Are you that direct? You send them an email and it's like, yo, just want to see if you're thinking about selling your business. Like, well,
it's the first one is not necessarily like that. It's more about, hey, I'm sure you're familiar with Sam. We see you're doing some very interesting things here, and here. We're also doing stuff here I think would make sense be complement complementary to each other. Would love to have a conversation and see where it goes. And you know, it's like, it's no secret that I'm the M&A guy, but then you kind of also lead to like, hey, if M&A is not an option, maybe there's a way we can team together and make this a win-win relationship either way. So not coming at it like super hard off out of the gates, but also not being like, not trying to be, you know, secretive about it either. Cause you don't want to get like alternative motives and like, why are we having this conversation when you get there and you're like, oh, I thought this was something different. And then you're just wasting each other's time.
Yeah, you sort of got a little bit of here's a strategy. You know, there's some commonalities between what we're doing.
Right.
We should probably go on a date and talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't you grab like a phone call from there?
Yeah, typically a phone call, Teams meeting.
What are you trying to do in that first call?
Just to start developing that rapport a little bit, right?
You always do that, especially I do a lot of these cross-border interviews. I'm like, America, we like small talk.
Yeah, definitely. Typically talk about the weather, right? Kids or grandkids, you know, that's topical for me. I've got young kids, so it's always fun to, you know, just get going with that. But then, you know, just very high level, like where are you guys focusing your business, markets you're in, you know, high level view on size, employee count, revenue, you know, what's important to you. You know, we'll probably talk a little bit more about, but culture's the thing that's most important here when it comes to these M&A deals, right? So, if the first conversation and the first words that are out of this person's mouth is like, what are you going to pay? You know, like what do you think for purchase price? You're like, well, it wasn't about their employees. It wasn't about their clients. It wasn't about, you know, taking care of people. So that kind of, you kind of can tease that stuff out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. That's a little bit of a turnoff.
Yeah.
That transactional thing.
Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to get there quickly, but it doesn't need to be that quickly. Right.
You do the intro call, you get a good, like the first call, I feel like it's a lot of this niceties, and then you get some key information, like, hey, this is where we're at. And then you probably get a sense of like, okay, this is interesting or not interesting from that call. What do you do from there? Do you have another call? Do you say, hey, I got to go meet this person?
Yeah, I would say every deal is a little bit different, but if I were to kind of put a standard process in place, it would be intro call, maybe another call, learn a little bit more. If it makes sense, bring someone else into that call with me. Maybe if it's very specialized capability or specialized, you know, work that they do, bring some type of subject matter expert into the conversation, because I don't know all the answers. You know, I don't know the business like a lot of the guys, our executives and leaders do across our organization. So getting them to hear the story and hear what they're doing, I think is really important early on if that's needed. And then, ideally it's trying to get in person or trying to get a little bit of information to just confirm and, you know, make sure that the revenue's there, make sure that the margins are there, and we're not wasting too much time. Right.
Valuation, right? How much you're going to pay is important.
Yeah.
You mentioned culture. Anything else important besides the money and culture?
For us, it's how long would you be willing to stay at the organization with us? Like, do you want us to write you a check and then you're off on the beach, or are you interested in the value that Sam can bring to the table to help, you know, supercharge growth for you, right, and your team?
How do you look at that? Does that impact value? Like if
Absolutely.
I know this person wants to leave, then
Absolutely,
we're going to value it less than.
Absolutely. Again, a lot of things are you need to consider and all that, but a lot of our deals are you know, $10 million or less in revenue businesses, right? So you've got some key man risk with 1, 2, 3 people, and if those are the owners or the owner, they walk away, their employees are loyal to them, their clients are loyal to them. There's a transition period that you need at least probably of 2 years to transition those relationships to somebody else. And sometimes they never transition, and that's unfortunate, right? But definitely don't like writing a check and seeing someone just sail off if they're truly important for driving revenue and
So what are the different scenarios? It's either, hey, I want to get out right away, I'll stick around for 2 years, or maybe I'm in it for the long run.
Yeah. Those are kind of the three. And we've seen them all, right? We've a lot of times you speak with these small business, family owned businesses that, it's like, why would I sell my business? I'm not ready to retire. And it's like, and you try to explain to them like, man, if you want to retire in 5 years, you should be selling your business right now if you want to get the most value for it. Because in 5 years from now, I'm not going to be willing to pay you the same thing, even if you're larger or more, generating more revenue and EBITDA. So it's really about, making sure that they understand that when you have those conversations with them. And then you get opportunities where, you come across a good firm with maybe younger leader, younger owner, and they fully appreciate that, hey, I'm kind of tapped out with where I can do this by myself or organically. Let's go join a company like SAM and we can, take this thing to the moon kind of thing.
This is definitely, you don't know this in M&A until it's too late.
Yeah.
And take notes on this one if you're listening. Yeah, we just talked, right? It's either, hey, I need out, whatever, some reason that happens.
Yep.
I need to get out. And then you have like, okay, I'll transition for 2 years and I'm out. And then here, 5 years, you're going to have more confidence and you're going to pay more for the 5-year scenario, knowing there's much better continuity with the management and higher optimism of business stability. But that's the thing. You got to plan that ahead. And people don't do that. They always think like, oh, next year, and that's it. Like I'm turning the keys over and I'm out. But we want to optimize for valuation. It's
right.
Obviously the growth factor of the business contributes to it, but then the confidence in the go forward is going to be critical.
Absolutely. Or, if that's where they're at and they want to retire, there better be somebody else in the room and we're talking that's going to be the go-to person, if it's their number two and maybe he's not a shareholder in the business, but he's being incentivized somehow to make, to help to prove the values there, I guess. Right.
Management, future, anything else you look for?
Clientele is extremely important, right? Who are they working for? Are they working for clients that we think we can, expand with, bring more capability, cross-sell to? Are they clients that we really want to be working with, right? There's, like I said, mentioned before, the electric utility power space is very important for us.
But how do you know,
public
like
works,
early? Because I'm not going to give you my customer list, dude. I'll tell you at the road.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's tough, but it's like, honestly, you'd be surprised what someone will tell you. Especially if they're trying to like pump up their business a little bit, right? Like, yeah, I'm working for this guy and this, and these guys and over here. But also like a lot of the time, especially in the public sector, who people, that's public domain information, right? Okay. So I know who has a contract with the Florida Department of Transportation. Like I know I can go on their website and see. So that's speaking of another sourcing tool, is you go scour the DOT and see who's winning all the work, and then you know who to go buy, right? So, but
I like that.
yeah. So obviously anything in the public domain where you can figure out who's working for who, but you're not going to get a client list immediately, but you can at least get that high level. Hey, I'm working for investor-owned utilities. Okay, great. Those are great clients. I'm working for a DOT. Great. That's great. I'm working for this other maybe larger engineering firm or AEC firm. Great. Those are all really good clients.
So you got the conversation, things look good. How do you get the deal to be actionable? Especially think about somebody that's never thought about selling their business, or like you described, I'm not going to retire anytime soon.
Right.
How do you turn it actionable?
It's just my charm.
Let's be real here. Do you convince people to sell?
No.
Break it down for me.
We've convinced people to sell to us, right? Okay. I guess. And for X price, but I don't think I've convinced anybody to sell their business. So, because I feel like if you're not, you can't just be convinced of that. Like you have to be thinking about that to an extent.
I'm curious about this because it sounds like the goals of these early interactions is 1, establish relationship and trust. 2, essentially to position yourself to be top of mind when the deal becomes actionable.
For sure.
And then there's probably some things of, like you said, if it's all these options, because I feel like anybody with common sense is going to want more than one option if they're going to exit.
Yeah.
So they may recruit the banker. Have you had that where you engage with them, it becomes actionable like a year later, but then they recruited a banker.
Yeah.
But you already know the person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, even though they have the banker and they're running a bank process, are you still communicating with that company directly?
Kind of in that situation, like right now, a little bit, to be honest with you.
Because nothing would stop me.
It's like, it's a fine line. And honestly, they're one of the business unit leaders in our organization is working with me on a deal like that. And he's the one that's kind of, having the conversations behind the scenes. So, but it's all good. I mean, it's no harm being done really at the end of the day. We've had situations where we've had conversations and, we're probably on the verge of going down some type of process to get a deal done. And they've hired like an advisor, right? Not necessarily like a banker to go like put this through an auction process, but an advisor to just help them through the process, which we're totally fine with. Honestly, makes our jobs a little bit easier. So that's a good situation typically. Unless they want to come in and they just like, oh, you can get twice as much money or you can get a multiple. Like, okay, we've already established where we are. Like, don't get in the way of the deal, like help get the deal done. So
yeah, the bankers. Well, it was the relationship building and, establishing positioning yourself. So when the deal is actionable, you're ready to move on it. And you're ideally, you have established that rapport.
Right.
You know that because you want the deal more than others, you're going to get the deal.
So, I mean, going back to the question, like, have you convinced anyone to sell their business? Definitely nudged very hard, right? Again, I don't think we've convinced anybody. I mean, we've had a lot of situations where you have a conversation with someone today and then in 2 years, it's, you continue to kind of stay in front of them and then 2 years you get the deal done, right? And it's no process. It's, Sam was always the natural buyer for me and it was just a timing thing.
How do you read the sellers to know what their motivators are? What's driving them? You take them out for a beer? 'Cause that's my technique.
For a beer. Yeah. Going back to, what's the cadence, phone call, Teams meeting, whatever. The in-person meeting is so helpful for that, right? And, I guess we'll share a little story about a deal we got done last year. And this is one where, nudged really hard for a long time. It's a good business down in the Southeast, doing a lot of electric utility work. Fit really well, like plug and play into our organization and our business unit. But, the owner was a relatively absentee owner. He was, the business was just running and it was just cash flow for him. So it's like, why should I sell the business? And I was like, well, there's gotta be headache somewhere for you somewhere. Like you don't need, like, we'll pay a good fair price. Like do you really want to continue to deal with this? And, that took a visit, a couple visits. It took a meeting around his pool in his backyard, and then at the end of the day, I think it came down to, okay, I think what Dan and who's there with me is telling me is true. And I think they're being genuine and we got the deal done. And 6 months later, I had a conversation with him the other day and it's like, I hear things are going great, cause that was one situation where he really didn't transfer over because he was not in the business. But we did put some type of like earnout scenario in, for more so to get the conviction that he really thought this level of revenue and everything could be maintained after he left.
Yeah, that he's incentivized.
To make sure it works. Yep.
And then I like how you dig into the pain. Like you got some headaches, because there's running like a software sales, right? It's like what are the pain points in doing M&A?
Right? And that's honestly that's where you kind of go. Again, being small business owners, it's like I know you're dealing with HR, I know you're dealing with accounting, I know you're dealing with payroll. Like we can take all of that off your plate, and go focus on generating revenue and building the business and your people. So
how often 25, 30 deals? Okay. Let's first of all, let's break it down to how many are pure proprietary deals versus came inbound.
I would say it's probably 70-30.
Okay, 70% are outbound.
Yep.
You hustling. That's great.
Yep.
And 30% buyer led, baby.
Buyer led.
That's you had a strategy.
I know you just coined it, but we've been pushing it for years. So
well, I'm not inventing anything. I'm just calling it out. I'm like, this is where the industry is going in the next 10 years. It's going to be more and more about proactively sourcing and executing deals. It's going to be more about tying it to strategy. We're calling where the ship is sailing towards.
Yep.
So out of the 70% proprietary, how many of those end up getting an advisor, just in general, getting an advisor out of the 70%?
Probably 1 out of 5.
1 out of 5.
Yeah.
And then that 1 out of 5, do they just help close a deal or do they turn it into an auction?
No, what we've seen is they help close a deal.
That's
honestly, the advisor, there's a handful of industry focused M&A advisors, bankers in the space. And I know them very well because I'm trying to get deals from them. So and I've actually built relationships with them saying, hey, they tell me like, hey man, if you ever get an opportunity where, the seller really needs someone to help them through the process, we're happy to help. We're not going to go try to shop this around or get in the way of the deal. We're happy to help, for a fixed fee. We'll help you guys get the deal done. Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And you got to be careful of like conflicts of interest. Like it ultimately needs to be a burden, the seller's born with it, but it's all in the nature of trying to get to a win-win deal.
Then so they could be helpful in that situation where they're not going to turn on you and really, so 70%, that's great. Like proprietary. Now those other 30% where it is competitive, this is what I'm curious because a lot of times I can imagine you're competing with PE firms and we get it right now, right? I got inbound for our DealRoom company coming from tons of private equity, minority, majority, and then also strategics. But the PEs always sell you on the second bite of the apple, which is like, all this and all the value creation stuff they have and all the consultants on their payroll. How do you going back to the other relationship and you're obviously positioning yourself, but the story, like what's your pitch and how do you compete with the PE firms?
I think this goes back to like trying to solve a problem for these owners, right? It's like, if you have what's the ideal situation for you if you sold your business to somebody, right? And they expected you and you expected to stay on and continue to work for 5 years. Well, it's probably doing what I love to do every day and focusing on that. Okay. Well, as a strategic buyer, I can offer you that. As a private equity buyer, I can help you, but you're still going to be the guy to go to when growth's not happening, when this isn't happening, right? Like we can relieve a lot of that stress. Like, yeah, we still want you to grow, but like put more of that onus on us, as like the acquirer to make sure that happens, right? And execute. Now that doesn't mean like you can just, stop working and you're only gonna work 30 hours this week. But I think that allows them to feel like, hey, I'm actually on a team here, and I actually like someone's bringing value to me to help drive growth. So
it's like the better together story.
Yeah.
But it's almost like they have clarity on what that's going to look like, but also they're excited about that.
Yeah. The other thing too is not just on like, hey, the day to day, like what I'm working, what I have to do as a seller, but from the business perspective, these are smaller firms. They probably are, from a service line or capability perspective, they're doing one thing that maybe call it we at SAM do 10 things, right? They're doing one of them. Okay, now they join SAM. Well, now you do all 10. Like, do you want to grow? Like the easiest way to grow is to go to your current clients and tell, hey, I can do all these other 9 other things for you now, right? So what unless the PE is going to like merge them into another firm, like you got to go build all that capability from scratch, right? So that's the whole strategic buyer play, right? So but I think it resonates. I think it's real.
Yeah, that is the better together.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to offer more, do more things, focus, get the pain points off that you don't want to deal with.
Yep.
Can we talk about how do you structure these deals? 'Cause again, go back to competitive situation, you got PE firm and we got levers, right? You got cash, you got earnouts, you mentioned rollover equity. You guys do the rollover equity?
From time to time.
From time to time. And then you could keep the seller's notes. Can you do that?
Yeah. Typically more of just like an earn-out situation.
Still similar.
Yeah, similar.
What does that look like for you guys?
This is something that's kind of evolved over doing 25 deals. We most were cash deals with some type of like earn-out tied to it, right? But the earn-out was really more as a retention mechanism. Going back to the conversation we had before, was like there's a lot of like key man risk here. We want this individual to make sure they stay on, to help continue to keep things rolling. But what we learned was oftentimes that earnout would get in the way of like broader company growth, right? Because this individual is tunnel vision focused on achieving their earnout, and we typically use an EBITDA based earnout, and all they cared about is hitting that EBITDA number, right? They didn't care about trying to collaborate with their neighbor, the offices next door, or bringing other people in to help strategize and build. So the way we structure it, you would think on paper it's like they're incentivized to do all that, and interests are aligned. But at the end of the day, the psychology wasn't there, and you just get folks tunnel vision on this earnout, right? So I think we've potentially missed some growth because of that. So what we did with and every deal is unique, right? And there's a right structure for every deal, but we started implementing more like retention bonuses, right? Retention payments. It's like, hey man, we agree like value purchase price is 10 million. We'll give you 8 today, and then we'll give you the other 2 over like a 2-year. Give you $1 million in a year. We'll give you the other $1 million in 2 years. Just got to be here. You got to be an employee, right? And that's it. And that then again going back, it puts the onus on us to like make sure that the value from the deal is created.
How do you communicate that? Because it's not technically part of the deal, because you're not necessarily, it's not an earnout. It's not saying, hey, here's what it is.
Yep.
It's not in the purchase price, right?
You're right. It's not purchase consideration.
So it's like, hey, here's your purchase consideration, but this is what your employment plan is going to look like.
Yeah.
How do you explain that to somebody so they get to?
Well, it's.
Do you just put like they're right next to the purchase price?
Yeah.
It's like,
we typically say, hey, like this is the number, like the headline number you should really be thinking about, but this is how we're going to structure it, right? And it's still at the end of the day, like,
so it is
this is what you wanted. We're giving you what you wanted, but this is how we're going to structure it.
So you give it's still technically a number you give to them, but then you break down, okay, this is the purchase price, and then this is your comp.
Just in the LOI, it's like, okay, we're going to pay you 10, purchase price 10, but we're going to pay you 8 at close, and then we're going to pay the other 2 over 2-year retention.
So it is in the purchase price.
It is in the it definitely is. Yep.
That's better. That's because I was going to say, like, you've got to have seen earnouts turn into litigation.
Yeah.
That's what you don't want to do.
No.
But then you have to deal with the drama with how you integrate the company.
Right.
I was wondering about that. It's like, well, you technically can't fully integrate if you got to track all this separately.
Right. That makes things easier. And honestly, the administrative burden too of tracking earnouts, and the end of the year, you've got an earnout payment coming due, and you've got your process of measuring it. Did we hit the targets? The ideal situation, it's like it's a no brainer, like easy. Yep. Nailed it. Pay them their money. But if you're close, then you got to jump through all the hoops, and it just creates an administrative burden for everybody. So
what's the percentage between here's like cash you're paying versus deferred, I guess, payments?
Again, that's, 80-20.
80-20.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not
90-10. I mean, yeah, some deals could be 70-30 depending on risk associated with it, things like that. But I just want to make sure, emphasize that every structure has value, in the right scenario, right? Like an earnout may make the most sense, right? And like, we need to make sure that this doesn't go backwards because there's risk associated with it. So we are going to use this earnout mechanism to mitigate that risk. That's the right tool to mitigate the risk versus like the retention payments.
I am still trying to do deals at 100% owner financing. I'm still looking for them. Anybody listening knows anybody who wants to sell M&A software, 100% owner finance. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Good.
Yeah. I've heard some like more aggressive where they do like a third cash, a third like seller fine, or a third earnout and third rollover equity.
Yeah.
The
reason why we don't typically, again, every scenario, you need to look at every scenario differently, but the rollover equity is not that it's honestly not something that seller typically wants, because we're in a lot of the scenarios we're in is like, hey, in 5 years, I want to be able to control my own destiny.
They want to be,
right?
they're closer. So they're not into that long of a term.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
How do you strike a balance between the seller's legacy, which they cared about, and smaller businesses, and integrating them into SAM's culture and processes?
Yeah, it's a challenge. What I would say is that, despite we like to we're a larger organization, we want to be able to scale, and we have scaled, and that requires standardization of processes, procedures, the tools we use, the systems we use, ERP systems, that also includes the name, right? So we rebrand relatively quickly, right? So the name on the door changes, but at the end of the day, going back to that kind of the local nature of our business, that entrepreneurialism that was there, we really try to maintain that and give that local operation opportunity to kind of like, control its strategy to an extent. And it's not, they're not out there on an island autonomously, like working as like, their own little franchise or something like that, but it's got to be tied to the broader corporate strategy. But what's right for your local geography may not be right for the one, 3 states over. Right. So giving them that flexibility, letting them maintain those local relationships.
So that it is still give them that autonomy of running their local market like they did before.
Yeah. And
then you're just working with them to enhance it.
Right. Exactly.
So it's like, hey, we got a new logo, but we got more things we can offer you.
Right.
The biggest thing we always hear about these deals, it's always post-close. Integration work is make it, break it. But what I've learned, buyer-led M&A, that it's not just, this obviously executing against a strategy, being proactive about sourcing your deals, but really leading your deal process with integration upfront so that it is there. It is just thought of throughout the whole process and not an afterthought.
Yep.
Better you plan anything. I've realized it's going to go better. Like anything, even with kids like this, plan better. It's going to come out better.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you really connect the integration and diligence so that you're optimizing for the best integration execution?
Yeah. It going back, it definitely improves every deal we do, but getting the integration planning and process going as early as diligence, really at the end of the day, we get to an LOI or get close or just past an LOI. We typically start gearing up our integration planning and getting all the folks involved, because it's a lot of the same folks that are going to be helping during diligence. Right. So, in using DealRoom, it's the data is shared across integration and diligence, work streams, right? So everyone's seeing the same information and you're using that diligence information to help plan integration. It just makes sense. It's more efficient. And that's what we like to try to do.
I get, my heart sings every time you say the word DealRoom. And I don't want to push our listeners to think, fuck, this guy's just trying to make a big commercial for DealRoom. But I want to air it out because marketing is going to appreciate it. Anybody in my marketing team, I'm giving Dan like 2 minutes right here to let it all out. Like the software part allows you to start doing the integration planning alongside of doing diligence.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a real, to me, after working with over 200 corp dev teams, that's like the game changer is like you plan. But I'm just curious from your side, you've seen it before without using products and doing it the old way. Yeah. Like what's the difference?
It's just such a more efficient project management process, right? It's like, rather than, working through antiquated spreadsheets and stuff, you're on weekly meetings, check-in meetings and status meetings. And, you're sharing screens of like the DealRoom platform, right? Looking at, work streams, tasks, and see where we're at, and sharing information and talking about key findings and things of that nature. Right. So, and because it's a lot of the same team, you unearth things quickly and you get things solved so much quicker, right? Because it's the same person, same people on both sides of it.
So you got the same people doing diligence that are able to plan integration, same environment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we obviously have some external diligence providers when it comes to, some legal things, finance, accounting.
You have them in there too?
Say that again?
You have them in the same platform?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. Well, let me just cut it straight to it. If you got to quantify this to your CFO and like quantify ROI, how do you explain that to him?
Yeah, I would say just from a time savings, whoever's involved, they're probably saving, 5 to 8 hours a week, if we're having a deal process. So just think about from a time perspective. And remember, these are all everyone's second job, right? Everyone else is, on the integration and diligence team, they're running something else. So they're in the accounting
So like
team.
all these function leads.
Yeah. From my perspective, anything I can do to make their lives easier, they appreciate that. Cause honestly, it's like sometimes we announce, hey, we got an LOI here. We're closing this deal. I feel like I got to lock my door sometimes because I don't know who's going to come down. Like another deal, we got to do another one. We just did one,
All right. So 5-8 hours times how many people?
Yeah. 30.
30. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
all I needed. Marketing. There you go. You got real data statistics. So we're not making up numbers here.
Yeah. But even on more, so that's kind of more of your blocking and tackling, back office functionality, diligence, integration. But you think about it more from like an operational and like strategic integration and diligence. That business unit leader is square in the middle of it all too, right? And they're pulling in folks from their team from an operational perspective that should be involved and need to be involved, right? We're not announcing to the entire organization that, hey, we're doing this deal, but the people that need to be in are in. They're under the tent.
So it's a lot of just efficiency. You got aligning people, priorities, what needs to get done. What have you learned from doing the deals to really optimize that execution? There's stuff in the software, but outside of that, like, is there certain ways you found structuring meetings or things that enable people to stay aligned on priorities?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to more reps. I mean, the more you do, just the more efficient, not like you're going through the motions, because if they're just going through the motions, then you're going to miss something, right? But it's like, this is what I need to be doing. This is what I need to be looking for. We know what's important to flag for our teams as we do more deals, right? Like, hey, HR, we saw this early on, like this could be an issue. Let's jump on this quickly kind of thing. Or, we know that they've got these contracts that, we may not like. We got to think about how, make sure we review those heavily, things of that nature. Right. So, it's just getting everyone more reps at the end of the day and building that muscle. That's what it comes down to. So,
and great software.
Just kidding.
Well, it's fun. It's we got to actually work together on the other side. Is there a view about how do we keep the process smooth? Because one thing internal, keeping folks coordinated and make sure things are getting acted on. But then the seller side, making sure they're getting a smooth experience so that they come in motivated and not like FUD.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question and something that I think is critical, and it's very hard to do because a deal's a deal, right? And it takes a lot of time and effort. And I try to be as upfront and transparent about that with these owners and founders of these businesses. Like, this is going to be a heavy lift, right? So like, just want you to understand that. And we're here to help, and we want to make this as smooth and as easy as possible, but it's going to be hard. You've never done this before, right? So the system, again, I mean, it's nice to have like a system where they can go in, they can see, like we share like the diligence list in DealRoom with them. They see what they have. They can upload it right to the task so that they know what they're looking for and where it's going and who's going to see it. So that's helpful. We emphasize getting really good counsel that's got a lot of M&A experience. Some folks don't listen to us, and it's detrimental to them more than anyone, because it's one, they're potentially not getting good representation, or two, it's like, the draft purchase agreement goes over, and then we get this just like redlined mess back because they don't know what's standard and what's not, right? And then it just creates so much more headache and problems than there really needs to be.
So you'll actually push back and say, hey guys, you probably need to get a better lawyer.
You should get it. Yeah. I mean, once you get going, and you probably, it's too late at that point, but it's early on in the process. We're on the verge of submitting an LOI or getting them something. It's like, make sure you get someone who really knows what they're doing here, because they could get in the way of getting a good deal done for you.
I almost feel like this is the golden rule of M&A, is have a good lawyer to work with.
Good lawyer. Yeah.
With or without an advisor, but I feel like having a good lawyer will make up for a lot of gaps.
Yep. And one that's capable of getting a deal done and being reasonable and knowing where to push and what not to push. And so, we've got some that we've worked with on a number of deals. They know what's important to us and where they can give and where they can, and, just a pleasure to work with. So it makes life a lot easier. Yeah.
Lawyers, software can help with experience with the whole workflow. Yeah. You mentioned it. I didn't. Anything else like you found to sort of be like, hey, this has been a really cool thing that make sure that it gets off to a good start? Do you sort of fly in with the box full of swag? And
Yeah. Maybe going back as a way to help build a rapport and build the trust and get a target owner thinking more like, hey, this might be the right thing for me to do, is getting them in touch with previous founders and sellers that have sold the SAM in the past.
Interesting.
And I think that does a really good job of.
It's cool you're not afraid to do that.
No. Well, again, like if you are afraid to do that, what does that say, right?
Well, I don't want to name anybody now, but
but I also think it's as you're trying to express that you're a fair and reasonable person. When you've got a track record of closing 25 deals, like you're obviously not screwing everybody over. You're not going to get another deal done, right? So reputation is important, and being someone, hey, we want to buy your business and offer you a fair price, reasonable price, and to show that, we go talk to everyone else that we bought businesses from. So they'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, as our CEO likes to say.
I keep laughing because I'm doing this right now. We got a lot of conversations with PE firms. So I'm going to their portcos and just talking to the other CEOs, and you get a whole different side of the story. And some are just like, look, man, they're completely, whole different story, which that's the reason why I chuckle. So it is a really good thing, the fact you can do it proactively. Well,
listen, they're on our payroll, right? But I think they've been very transparent when they've had those conversations. We tell them to as well. It's like, I think this all goes back to as part of that early relationship building process. If you know this isn't going to work culturally, and this isn't a deal to do, like, then like let's make that call early on. Both agree and go on our way. Like, there's no reason to set something up to fail. Like, why? Right. So like, and why waste our time? You're busy. I'm busy. Let's get to know quickly. Right.
It's almost like another layer of diligence too, because other execs be like, yeah, that's going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So
I got a question. So we brought up PE, the relationship with a PE firm. And what I'm trying to understand is, as you identify deals to do, I know there's PE firms have very different range of operating models and the way they support that, or get in the way. What I want to get a sense of, what does that look like? What does the governance look like for you to do deals? Do you have free reign to just write checks? Or could you how's that?
No, good question. As we've gotten better at it, we definitely have a little bit longer of a leash, right? And but our private equity partners are great, and they're very supportive of the M&A, the M&A playbook that we have. What I would say is that going back to the conversation we had earlier about how we use M&A as a tool, right? And it's included as part of our kind of strategic planning. And you kind of build that like buy box, if you will. Like what do we want to, where do we want to focus our M&A efforts? Like if we need to prioritize something, like we know it's going to be hard to grow this organically because X, Y, and Z, but from an M&A perspective, it makes sense to like focus here. Okay, great. Put that, like that's the priority in the buy box. You have like 4 or 5 things that make sense. If you tee something up that fits squarely down the fairway with that, it's a pretty easy go get it done kind of thing, right? With, a good like pitch deck of, 10 slides or something like that. And like, here's the strategy and here's why, and here's the value that we recommend and proposing to pay and what we think it'll do from an accretion perspective. And then, get the LOI signed up and go through diligence, weekly check-ins on diligence. And then like, a final like bring down report or update when we're about to close the deal. But if it's something that's a little bit outside the fairway or something new, or maybe, hey, we think adding this type of capability or solution, or it's a little bit outside of our core competency, then that's going to require some more conversation, which it rightfully so, right? It probably takes more to articulate the why in that scenario. So it's but that's fun, right? Like you get to really sit down and partner with the private equity sponsor and talk through it and help them understand why you think this is good. And then maybe they have a different way of thinking about it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
There's a whole other thing we can expand on. So we'll come back to that in another podcast. I know we're hitting close to time here. It's what's next? What's next? M&A, growth, future. I'm kind of happy we haven't talked about tech, we talked about tech, but not like AI specific.
Yeah.
But like what's coming?
Do you want me to go there? Well, I guess that's a good segue. What we just talked about, something that's like, looking at something that's maybe not right down the fairway. We did a couple deals last year that were a little bit different. And what's interesting about SAM is we've collected all this data over, our existence, right? And I think we're pretty unique in the industry to have all this geo-referenced data on, where points are or where things are on the Earth's surface. And it's pretty valuable information if you know how to like hone it and structure it and analyze it, right? We've never really done that, and no one has really done that. But we made a couple acquisitions last year that are starting to put the tools in place and the capabilities in place to start doing that and providing real intelligence from that data to our clients. And it goes back to like asset management and understanding where things are. So if something fails, they know what to go fix and what has to be fixed. Or if, based on history, this piece or this part's going to break, right? So it's finding more things like that will ultimately lead more work for us from the data collection side, because obviously you'll find gaps in where you need to go maybe collect some data. But at the same time, you're just bringing more value to our clients. So continue to innovate, and M&A is gonna be a part of that, right? Because there's a lot of smart people doing some interesting things out there, and we're not gonna be able to do it all. So, so that's what I would say is next. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of money being spent, a lot of talk about, our utility grid not being up to scale and maybe do things differently there. Roads and bridges, I think we got a D+ or something from the Army Corps of Engineers report card on our infrastructure in the United States. So there's just a lot to do, and you're going to have to do some type of automation or AI to do it because there's just not enough people to do it.
Yeah, this is I remember Bain had a report a number of years ago about scope versus scale.
Yep.
This is expanding on the scope case, acquiring for capabilities to do more things.
Yep.
What's the craziest thing you've seen in M&A?
We've had some fun things over the years, but I have to say, deal we ultimately didn't do. I mean, it's just, small business stuff that you see, and some of these owners were on like a diligence call with attorneys, accountants, and the owner of, there's two owners. One of them was on the call. He's more like the CFO, COO. So he was, giving us a lot of the diligence information. He's on a Zoom call and he's walking around his pool smoking a cigarette, and you got all these attorneys and lawyers on, and they're just like looking at me like, who is this guy? Like, what are we doing here? You're buying this company? It's just like, we're contemplating. Ultimately, it didn't go through, but I mean, just the guy was quite a character. So I'm sure there's crazier things out there, but that one stuck in my mind.
That is a funny one.
Yeah.
You ever like a big surprise that popped up during diligence? Because I always think these small businesses, like what they expense on the business, or just things that pop up. I don't know if you've.
What we run into a lot is where our industry and like the survey geospatial stuff. There's a lot of like small business set aside work, like a small or like certified disadvantaged business, minority owned business, woman owned business. And, if SAM were to acquire that company, a lot of that work goes away. Right. So I guess this is something, lesson learned. We were talking with the firm, made no mention whatsoever that he was like a certified small business. And, we basically get to an LOI, then we start getting his contracts and reading the contracts. And it's like small set aside contract, and it's like, so probably should have caught that earlier, just to be honest, but, something you might want to lead with a little bit if you're a seller. 'Cause again, no one wants surprises. We just wasted a bunch of time. We had to walk away from that deal. It's just.
Yeah, it's funny. And sometimes seller, if you're first time, you don't know.
You don't know what to say.
Yeah, you don't know that. That's a big red flag.
Or like maybe you just assume that I should know that. It's probably my fault, my ignorance. So definitely put that one on the diligence list early on in the process.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dan, this has been a great conversation. Yeah. I appreciate you taking the time with me, sitting down, helping me become a better M&A scientist.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for all that you do, Kasan. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure collaborating with your team. Fellow M&A scientists, you listened this far. Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate hearing from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't blow me up asking for a bunch of random favors. I just can't take it anymore. I don't know how many people like ask for meetings for this, that, but I am happy to love to get the feedback, topic ideas, criticism. I'll take it. I'm trying to get better at doing this to provide more value. Till next time, here's to the deal.